Welcome to Talking Comfort Live, a show that reminds us just how cool HVAC can be by discussing today's hot topics in home comfort. From learning to laughing and sharing personal experiences to challenging the leading industry narratives, our show goes deep inside the world of mini splits, heat pumps, and the inverter technology that brings efficient comfort to our products. And you can help us in our quest to make HVAC cool. We're looking for you to be a part of the show. If you have a question, please send it our way. We might take it live. Now grab a bucket and take a break. It's time for Talking Comfort Live.
Welcome back. I'm James McIntyre, Senior Director of Commercial Sales with GREE, and I want to thank you for joining us on this season's 6th episode of Talking Comfort Live. Today, we'll be covering a range of topics that will help you provide your customers with the right comfort solution while delivering top-notch support. Part of that comes from you simply asking questions or offering your opinion. This show is meant to be a gathering of minds, so please get involved and don't wait until the end. Send us your thoughts anytime. Let's see. Today, we're going to give you an A2L product update. Then we're going to challenge the narrative that we're hearing that ignores the years of success R-32 has enjoyed in actual real-world applications. We're going to tear down the "I ain't putting that thing on my wall" objection when it comes to wall mount units. We'll touch on the difference between a heat pump and a mini split, which is interesting, but we'll go over that. We'll touch on let's see, we'll respond to a comment made on one of our YouTube videos, and we will have a discussion around proper flaring. Again, this is your opportunity to connect with us and become more comfortable with the latest in GREE comfort. So let's start talking comfort. Justin, kick us off with an update of where we are with the A2L update.
All right, so this afternoon, I'm going to talk about our upcoming A2L transition and give some more information as to what products you can look forward to and approximately when they're going to be available, and also when all the literature and everything should be available up on our website. If you haven't heard, GREE is going to move forward with refrigerant R-32, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. And here a little bit later in the show, we're going to bring up our new Misnometer, and we're going to talk about common myths in the industry and have a little bit of a heated debate about that. But for now, we'll talk about why we went with R-32. So R-32 overall is just a better refrigerant. It's going to have a little more capacity, a little better efficiency, should be more readily available and less expensive. Reason for that, it's been in production for a long time throughout the globe, and there's no active patent on it currently. We understand that cost can be quite the concern for some consumers, so it's going to be a little less expensive for you. And also, it just has a long track record of use across the globe. You know, R-32 has been in production and use for many, many, many years, whereas some of these new refrigerants coming out, you know, they're brand new. They really don't have a long record of usage at all in the field. So we feel overall that R-32 was the direction to move in. All right, this is our ductless product lineup that you're going to see for the new R-32 refrigerant. Most of you should be familiar with a lot of these products. We're going to have our entry tier Levo, our mid tier Vireo, and of course our high tier, most efficient model Sapphire. One of the new products that we have added in the 1-to-1 ductless is the Invo, and that is the product that you can mount the accessory fresh air kit to for those applications requiring outside air. And then, of course, we have the multi-zone product that's going to be available. The 1-to-1 models, Levo, Vero, Invo, and Sapphire, those are going to be available for replenishment orders in June. And the multi-zone, that's going to be available for replenishment order in July. Now, all of these models are going to utilize our new compressor design for low vibration. And of course, all the indoor units for these will have that R-32 leak detection sensor, you know, for safety, UL requirements, all that stuff. So no worries about any kind of UL or code issues there with our indoor units. Now, when I talk about these units being available in June or July, what I mean is these are for replenishment orders, container direct. So if you're a customer who purchases container direct, you can order these products in your containers in June or July as indicated. Now, with regards to Tradewinds inventory, we will be placing the replenishment orders for these products in probably towards the end of July. And with the current production and shipping turnaround, that will probably put them in our barn, you know, late October-ish. So if you purchase direct from our inventory, we won't have these new R-32 products available until probably October. For now, we're running through the summer with the current R410A models. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, and this is our Flex lineup for new R-32 refrigerant. We have the high tier ultra heat model that's going to be available for replenishment orders in June. So basically, this is going to be the true successor to the original Flex that we released. We made a lot of good improvements to this product, and I think most people are going to really enjoy it. Then we have our entry tier Eco Flex, and that's going to be available in late September for replenishment orders. I do know we've got plenty of the 410A models in stock for the Flex Eco. So if you've not tried that out, haven't seen it before, talk to your sales rep about that 410A model, and they'll be happy to get you some information on that. Okay, this is the new X Pack for R32. It's going to be an ultra heat model available in 2, 3, 4, and 5 tons. And that one will be ready for replenishment orders by October 2024. Currently, the 410A model is available, and it is a container direct product as of right now. We don't currently stock it. If that's something that you're interested in, want us to have in stock, please reach out to your sales team. Let them know. We can bring that in for you. All right. This is our Multi-Pro lineup. The R32 Multi-Pro product, that's going to be available in October. So as of right now, we're kind of running through with our 410A product, and this will change over in October. We're going to have the standard heat pump models in 2, 2.5, 3, 4, and 5 ton. We'll have the Ultra Heat available in 3, 4, and 5 ton. All the new indoor units with the refrigerant leak detection sensors in them. And then, of course, we're going to offer our brand new dual fuel A-coil that compare third-party gas furnaces in October as well. So with that product, we're just working on the controls, the safeties, and all that stuff. So that's currently in development. All right, 3-phase VRF, the top discharge. We're looking at having our dual model heat pump / heat recovery and standard heat available in 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14 ton chassis. That'll be available for order in December of 2024. I know that product's kind of hitting right on the cusp of that transition, but we will have some 410A stuff in the barn ready to go. So if you have a product that you need to get out for a project, really quick, we're going to have the 410A model. We can take advantage of that sell-through period next year while we wait on the 32 product to get into the country. And then we'll also have the 6, 8, and 10 ton Ultra Heat models available as well. We're working on those. All right. Now this is kind of the big thing, because I know everybody wants to look at the literature, see the specs, and see what's going on with everything. So here's kind of the timeline for all of the literature updates that are going to be happening. So with our product specifications that we get directly from the factory in the Excel files, available now, we have the Levo, Vireo, Invo, Sapphire, Flex Ultra, and then of course the PTAX and the through-the-wall units that those two we released last year. So we have the specs on those models now. In June, we expect to see the specifications on the multi-zone. And then, of course, in September, we're going to see those late developed products like the Flex Eco, the Flex A-Coil, Multi-Pro, X-Pack, etc. R32 AHRI certificates in June. The Levo, Vireo, Invo, Flex Ultra, PTAC, TTW should be available on the database. In July, we expect to see the Sapphire and the multi-zone. And then, of course, later in October, we see those other products. The submittals should be available for the Vireo, Levo, Invo, Sapphire, etc. at the end of June. July, we should have the multi-zone submittals available. And then in October, everything else. Same thing with the sales brochures. We're looking at mid-June for most of the ductless products. July from the multi-zone. And then, of course, October for those other late developed products. Parts manuals, same way. R32 service manuals, installation manuals. Most of those are going to show up in July. And then in October for the other products. And on our extended ratings tables, again, July for most of the one-to-one and multi-zone and the Flex Ultra. October for everything else. And then on our website itself, we're going to have the R-32 product pages built and posted on the website for the Levo, Vario, Sapphire, Flex Ultra by the end of June. Multi-zone will be up and ready to go in July. And then for all the other products, we should have that up and running in October. So once we get those web pages built out on the website and put up, we're going to take all that literature, just like we always do, and we're going to post it under those product pages. So it's there, ready to go, very easy for you to get to. In the meantime, if you have something come up where you do need to look at any of these other manuals, brochures, etc., reach out, and if it's available, we can provide that to you. If not, we'll just kind of let you know like where we're at in the timeline of things. So, and that's all I've got for the A2L update. Hope everybody's excited. I know we are. We look forward to seeing what happens. So, James, back to you.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate the update. We all appreciate you providing all of that detail, as we do get a lot of questions about that. And I feel like we're probably going to be getting questions about that until people forget what our 410A is. So as a reminder, we have the question mark icon to the right of the screen. So please feel free to ask as many questions that you'd like to ask. And we're going to go ahead and take a break and go over some of the questions that we've had come through. We're going to start with, let's see here. Jay asks, does GREE have live technical support? Greg.
Well, it's a good question. We have technical support. I think what he's getting at is, do we have live technical support where when the phone rings, we pick up the phone and answer questions? That we don't do. They do come into a computer-generated program, and calls or we return the calls as they come in on the computer board. So it's very important when you call in for tech support that you leave that voicemail, your name, phone number, model, serial number, and just a general brief explanation of what you're after. Then right after that, you get a text message, and that gives you the opportunity to, and preferably if you already have them in your phone, but you can send us a picture of the data tag so we know a model and serial number. I've been doing tech support for a long time, guys, and everybody always wants to give us the full story. I'm working on, a 2-ton GREE heat pump with this and that and this, and you spend all this time explaining to us what you want, what you're working on. If you just give us models and serial numbers, we know what you're working on. So at least one model and serial number, preferably the outdoor unit. And if you have the indoor model and serial numbers, you can reply to that in a text message. And once you do that, I assure you, you will get a return phone call.
Right. So we also have what is our AI chatbot. Would you care to explain some of that as well, as far as the type of live support that you might be able to get?
Yeah. So if you're on our web page, there's the AI chatbot there, and you can, ask for support that way, and it's going to ask questions. And if it's questions that can be answered by previous documentation, it's going to feed you that documentation. And that AI feature is going to get better and better and better as more people ask questions. So the more you guys ask questions through that chatbot, the smarter the chatbot gets to give you the answers that we may already have documented. We do have a lot of documentation within that whole computer generated system. I'm no computer wizard, and I'm not a wizard on how the bots work either, but that's what they tell me. And we've already had a lot of great questions, and a lot of questions have been answered by that as well, without us actually having to answer. So it's just another tool. Give it a try. If you don't like it, by all means, you can call our tech support line, which is 888-850-7928.
Well, thank you, Greg. I'd like to point out too that I've seen some of the interactions. So if you go through the AI chatbot and it can't answer it, it does get sent to one of our tech support agents, and I've seen some of those interactions like that. And one of the amazing things about that is that our tech support agents are on the phone, helping one customer, and then they're typing back on this through that system. And so effectively 2 people are getting helped at once by one person. So that really helps out too,
And James, you're correct, because I've actually done exactly that.
Right. Yeah.
answered questions via a message, and never had to call the guy because he got his answer and he replied back to me and he said, "Look, thanks for the help. That's all I needed."
Right. Because, sometimes it is just a quick kind of answer.
Right.
And a lot of that stuff gets answered through the text message, system as well. Like if somebody's just looking for a link to a video or a manual or something like that, you get the answer much quicker than it would be to wait on hold for 45 minutes, hoping that you get somebody listening to some god awful music. Um, like some air conditioning song or something like it is sometimes, right?
And I got to say, the system we use works phenomenally well because, I mean, we can have a contractor out there in the field working on something and say, I'm not quite seeing what you're seeing, so send me a picture.
Right.
They send you a picture. Now it's like we're standing there. That helps us help them as well. So we got a lot of tools involved. So make sure when you reply by text message, include your email too. Because a lot of times we can email you some documentation that would help you with whatever you're troubleshooting on at that particular time. I can't, try to give examples, but my God, there's so many. We can't send like full service manuals because there's too many pages, and email's not going to let that happen. But we can definitely send you links to here's how you get it. There's an array of ways we can support people. So it's not that we don't answer the call. That's the other thing that is important to understand here. What is the difference if you call in and wait on hold for a half hour, or you get a phone call back in a half hour, or roughly? I'm not saying we can always do it in 30 minutes, but our average callback time is less than 45 minutes.
Right. So well, I'll tell you, there's nothing that made me more mad than waiting on hold. And like, you got to keep it live. You got to put it on speakerphone. Oh no, my phone's about to go dead. I got to go find a charger, all the rest of that stuff. You can still continue to work. You're not having to, be on the phone in an attic somewhere, something like that. And like I said, I got to say the music on some of those hold, it's not always like the classic rock station. Sometimes it's heating and air songs. I mean, I know that, you and Justin have both heard that before. So, the heating and air conditioning songs, right?
Well, and the last piece of advice I can give there is if you waited for a while, you can't wait no longer, you got to move to another job. I completely understand that. Take the minute to take all those pictures of the data tags you're working on. You may be working on a 4-zone system. Walk around the house real quick, take a picture of each one of them and send them in the messages. The more information you give us about what's going on, that when we do get a hold of you, even though you left the job, the more details we have, it gives us more to go on to help you so you know what to do when you go back.
Right. Right. Okay, so we're going to move on from the Q&A right now. Again, question mark icon to the right of the screen. Go ahead and hit that and ask the questions that you have. We do have a fair amount of questions to get back to, but we're going to go ahead with the next segment. All right, we're going to go around the horn and tackle some statements we hear being thrown around that we think is worth debating. It's important to have the proper tool for the job, right? To help with this, let's introduce our Misnometer. What are we reading on the Misnometer today? After manufacturer testing, R-454B is the most reliable A2L refrigerant. All right, so that's something that we can discuss. What kind of testing do you think has happened on that, Mr. Silsbury?
So just like any other refrigerant, they're doing the basic testing, lifetime testing, et cetera, doing it at different temperatures, seeing if it fractionates, see if it degrades, so on and so forth. But I'll say this. R-454 was just recently introduced. It has not been used in the field in any large production or any real meaningful way. Whereas R-32 was introduced in 2012, 12 years ago by Daikin. Since then, R-32 has been used in millions and millions of air conditioners around the globe with great success. They're not, exploding. They're not, losing capacity because the refrigerant is fractionating. It's a single component refrigerant. It's not a blend like R-454, so you don't have to worry about it, coming apart at a molecular level, so on and so forth. So To say that 454 is the most reliable refrigerant, yeah, I'm sure there's some tests that are showing that it looks great and everything else, and and 4 out of 5 doctors smoke Camels, right? But, I would just say look at the track record, right, before you make any kind of decision on that. So I would say that's kind of a misnomer, so to speak.
Oh. Well, I mean, it is right. 4 out of 5 doctors do smoke Camels. So, got that smooth flavor. This is not a sponsored ad. Greg, would you like to add something to that?
I came from being technical support at a manufacturer level as well. And I don't care how much testing you do, it's not the same as it being the equipment actually being installed in the field and being put to this actual strenuousness that happens, out in the real world, per se. So it's no different than when I went to trade school. What we could learn in trade school was only so much because you weren't getting real live world experiences where you're actually out there working on that air conditioner and it's 95 degrees outside. Sure, they can simulate it all they want, but it's not the same. So I have to go with what Justin's saying here. We've got a proven refrigerant that's been out there since 2012 versus a refrigerant that's new production. Not saying that 454 couldn't be better. What I'm saying is there's no proof there yet.
Okay. As far as questions, Matt Wagner would like for you to repeat the tech number again.
It's 888-850-7928.
All right. Let's see. Got one more question. It says, when will we have the official notification / announcement about R-32 products for our customers?
We've made many announcements regarding the fact that we are having R-32 products, not 454 and everything else. In the presentation I did earlier, there's a timeline regarding availability, pricing, so on and so forth. When those products are ready, probably end of June, I'm sure we'll release another mass email to everyone to kind of let everybody know what's going on. That being said, I'm sure that was a question from one of our reps. So obviously, we want to make sure that the reps are making the announcements to the customers, right? So,
I mean, just be
on the lookout. We're constantly releasing this information on a weekly basis.
But Justin, we're definitely going R32. So the equipment we're going to be ordering is R32 equipment.
Absolutely, we are stocking
as it becomes
R32
available.
equipment.
We'll have submittals and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay. I think that's kind of what they're after. Where's the documentation behind R32 equipment? And it's coming as soon as it's available.
Yep. All is that we had the timelines in the presentation there. So.
Right. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, there's one more related to A2L. No, I'm sorry. There's 2 more questions related to A2L. I heard there is an extension until 2026. Also, I was here in the early 90s. The same thing happened. I was also here in the early 90s.
So I remember the old.
Not me. I'm only 20.
Oh yeah, Greg's only 20.
So that's referring to kind of the EPA milestones, and there's a few important milestones to keep in mind, and it's really important to make the distinctions here. With regards to 410A equipment, there is an import ban or manufacturing ban January 1st, 2025. So that means that we will not be able to bring in any more complete R410A systems after January 1st, 2025. That being said, the 410A equipment that is already in the country before that date, we can sell through that to 2026, January 1st, 2026. If it's a split system, packaged products are extended through 2028. So there's a little more time if you have packaged products like P-tax, window units, so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm glad they made it simple for us. Right, nothing to remember there. But we'll constantly keep you guys updated on that. The next thing we have is we've got another reading on the misnometer. A mini split on my wall would disrupt the aesthetic of my living room decor. Okay. Yeah. So I would like to point that out. All right. So one of the objections that we hear about mini split wall mount units in particular is that maybe customers don't want that thing on their wall. There are definitely homeowners that go that direction. I can tell you that I have wall mount units on my wall, and I am married to an interior designer. It's the only argument I ever won. That's just the way that's the way it goes. But no, so once these units are installed for some time, it becomes a part of the just the way it is. It's a utilitarian product. It's an appliance style product. So in that way, if people couldn't, if they didn't have to see their refrigerator or their oven or their dishwasher, some customers, some homeowners go out of their way to try to hide those things. One of the things that people typically don't hide is talking about Greg's TV, it's like a 90-inch TV, right? Right.
It's the only way I can see it.
Yeah, it's the only way you can see it. Okay. So, but when that TV is not in use, for example, it's a giant black box on the wall, right? No matter where you put it. I mean, yeah, there's some fancier TVs out there that look like paintings and stuff like that, but no matter where you put it, you end up with a giant black box on the wall. So, when you're looking at the cost associated with the efficiency associated with wall mount units, the homeowner is going to make that determination, and our job and your job as distributors or contractors or whatever is to give them the information so they can make an informed decision, right? If they see what kind of price difference is, for example, between a wall mount and then a ducted unit being hidden somewhere, maybe that's a determination that they'll use. Just like for efficiency, you don't have all the duct loss and you're not putting something that's supposed to be cold air into a hot space like an attic. There's a lot of efficiency gains from using a ductless product. So when they see that, when they're talking about saving money, that kind of thing, they might be more apt to use, like a wall mount unit. And as we've seen as a market, the popularity of these has exploded. And if you've been anywhere else in the world, you also see that's pretty much all they use. But please feel free to add to that, Justin, Greg.
Well, I'll say right off the bat, and I've said it many times before, until you got a wall mount that's blowing that cool air right over your bed when you're sleeping, you ain't living yet.
Right.
Because I like it cold when I'm sleeping. I want the comforter on, even in summertime.
Right.
So, and my wife was the same way. She didn't want any part of any wall mounts. And I was like, okay. And I finally beat her down and I put them in the bedrooms. And, after they'd been up there for a little bit, she was like, that's really not bad at all. They don't bother her at all. So, but I could see it in the main living quarters that she didn't want them on the living room wall and stuff like that. So that's what we did the air handler for that, but, there's other options as well. The floor ceiling units, you could always use those as well. And they're not up on the wall. So,
yeah. Ceiling cassettes, like the 4-way or the 1-way. 1-way's become very popular. It's up and mounted out of the way. It operates a lot like what a wall mount would, but it's on the ceiling instead. It's always kind of killed me, even with ceiling cassettes. People go, well, I don't know if I want something like that in the ceiling. And I look up, they've got like a 30 by 30 return grill and, all kinds of like can lights and, all kinds of stuff on the ceiling,
well, now that you mentioned that, I think the 20 by 24 return grill I got in my living room is about ugly. I think the wall mount's better looking than that return grill is.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just basic human psychology, right? They're going to notice it for about a month. Then after that, it just becomes part of the environment and they don't really notice it again. So it's
right. Well, I'll tell you, I notice mine all the time, but, I do this for a living and I'm a heating and air nerd. We can't, we can't base our judgments on what we think, what the homeowners might think. I mean, we're the people that sit in the restaurant and look up at the ductwork. We're the ones who ride around town and go, hey, honey, I put that unit in. I put that unit in. Oh my God, look at that curb they put that unit on. Stuff like that. We pay attention to stuff like that. Homeowners 9 times out of 10 don't. As a matter of fact, when people are asked like what air conditioner do they have, they'll refer to the thermostat brand.
Mm-hmm.
They may not even know half the time, right? They're not paying attention to it.
And how many of us go on vacation? You're taking pictures of the units that are easy around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, put that in.
Yeah. Right. I got plenty of let's say poor installations. We'll say that, or like a restaurant, they'll go, they don't really want the wall mounts, and then what they put in after that, sometimes it's not always spiral duct and it's not always pretty, right? It's just not the way it always works. All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. So let's hear from Vanessa as she kicks off our Versus series. Today, it's heat pump versus mini split. Now, I know it may sound like a silly comparison, but no doubt this is a question that pops up a lot from homeowners. And it doesn't hurt to hear a few simple ways to address them in a way that takes the conversation in a positive direction. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa with GREE, and in our Versus series, we're going to clear up confusion when it comes to this or that, now or never, and he said, she said. Today, we'll cover a common question we hear from homeowners. What's the difference between a heat pump and a mini split? I'll take a bit of liberty here to assume most people, when asking that question, are referring to how a traditional heat pump differs from a mini split heat pump. So first, how are they the same? Both depend on one outdoor unit that helps to bring comfort to the home by either removing or adding heat to the outside air through the use of electricity and refrigerant. But that's really the extent of their similarities. Traditional heat pumps pair their outdoor unit with one indoor unit, typically installed in basements or attics, and blows air through ductwork or metal piping that runs throughout the home until reaching registers and grills located in various rooms and spaces that require comfort. On the other hand, mini split systems have more options. A mini split system can be configured as one outdoor unit connected to one indoor unit, or one outdoor unit connected to multiple indoor units placed throughout the home, referred to as a multi-zone system. And these connections are made through refrigerant lines, not ductwork. So rather than blowing air through ductwork like traditional heat pumps, mini split heat pumps blow air direct from the indoor units, which are located in the conditioned spaces. So now that we understand the basic differences, which is better, a traditional heat pump system or a mini split heat pump system? Well, let's drill down on what these differences mean when it comes to efficiency, comfort, flexibility, and cost. First, efficiency. Mini splits eliminate the need for extensive ductwork, which is a common source of energy loss in traditional systems. This means more of the conditioned air reaches its intended destination, improving overall system efficiency. GREE mini splits use inverter compressors, delivering variable speed operation to ensure that the system only uses the energy needed to meet the current load, unlike the on-off functionality of traditional heat pump systems. Second, comfort. Each indoor unit in a mini split system can be controlled independently, allowing for precise temperature control in different zones of the home. This means you can condition only the spaces you are using, leading to significant energy savings. Traditional ductwork can accumulate dust, allergens, and other contaminants over time. Mini splits, being ductless, avoid this issue, contributing to better indoor air quality. Mini split systems are known for their quiet operation, both indoors and outdoors. This is a significant advantage over traditional systems, which can be noisy, especially when the air handler or ductwork is located near living spaces. Next, flexibility. Mini splits require minimal construction work compared to traditional systems that need extensive ductwork. This makes them ideal for retrofits, additions, or homes without existing ductwork. With various indoor unit options, mini splits can be installed in virtually any space, providing unmatched flexibility. Finally, which is the more cost-effective system, a traditional heat pump or a mini split heat pump? While the initial installation cost of a mini split system may be higher, the increased efficiency and reduced energy consumption result in lower utility bills over time. Without extensive ductwork and with advanced technology, mini splits often require less maintenance, saving you money on repairs and upkeep. I hope this has helped you to either understand better the difference between traditional heat pumps and mini splits, or has given you a new perspective that will help avoid confusion when assisting homeowners. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at GREE Comfort and stay in the know as we roll out more Versus videos. Until then, remember, at GREE, we're by your side.
What we'd like to do now is head over to our YouTube channel at GREE Comfort and pick one comment to discuss. This week, we're looking at our video, the proper startup procedure for the GREE GMV6 Ultra. Let's talk about the comment. Another option is to apply a portable debugger or connect to a computer via converter. All the process is visualized, then I can grasp the whole process. Okay. So that's definitely something that you can do. Is we do have a portable commissioning tool that can connect to this, and it assists in the startup process of it. It is not required to use that tool for that startup process. It's a simple push button process, but either way, you can do that. The portable commissioning tool or the portable debugger also shows you your temperatures and your pressures for everything on the system. Now, I will say that you can also see all that information through a wired controller if your system has one. You can see the pressures, temperatures, the target compressor speed, the target hertz, your DC bus. Instead of pulling out a meter and measuring the DC voltage on your inverter board, you can see what that's being measured at the wired controller or at a portable debugger. Greg, would you like to add something to that?
Well, the new GMV6 Ultra, multi-pro Ultra unit, that whole debug process, step by step, just pushing the buttons on the board is right there on the service panel.
Right.
Makes it extremely easy. You don't have to have the service tool, although I encourage the use of the service tool because, like you said, it gives you a lot more information, and you can see the whole system from one spot. You don't have to go to multiple indoor units to see, pressures and all that kind of stuff. But as far as startup goes, when I started up the one that I was testing, I had the portable service tool right there, and I just used the board because it was so easy just to toggle. It's just pushing a couple buttons and letting it go through its process. So whether you're doing it with the service tool or you're doing it just by pushing the buttons right there on the board, it's a pretty simple process to run through it. Now, if you have a glitch in it, in other words, you have an error code, this service tool might give you a little bit more information. But generally speaking, if your debugging process stops and you get an error code, then you can refer to the service manual. You can also look at right on the service panel of the door. It gives you all the error codes. So you could have a very simple error code. I mean, I give you a simple example of one that I dealt with where the guy was going through debug, and all of a sudden, I forget the error code number right off the top of my head, but it was stuck right there. And I'm like, I look up the error code. I'm like, okay, you got no power to the indoor unit. Well, they were wiring the float switch, for the condensate pump was fused, and they were fusing the condensate pump and the air handler with a 1/2 amp fuse. So as soon as the air handler tried to start the blower, it blew the fuse. So it was a very simple, correct the wiring, only fuse the pump, ran it through debug, no big deal. But that's just one example, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody or anything like that. It's just, it could be that simple. If it doesn't complete debug, there's an error. It's going to pop the error code, and then you'll know where to go next, whether you look at the service manual or if you use the service tool. Again, I don't think you're going to have the service tool for that.
Right.
As long as you get on the website, get our service manual, because the installation instructions is what the machine comes with. It doesn't give you the service manual. If you download the service manual, then it'll give you the error code listing and point you in the direction where you need to be, and maybe some helpful pointers of what could be going wrong.
Right.
Usually on a new installation, it's pretty simple. It's not going to be a major error code like a board failure or anything like that. I just don't see that happening.
Right. I think that's something we kind of brush across, is the fact that these do show you error codes. Traditional system, if it didn't operate, you're like, okay, well, let me start from, okay, do I have power? Do I have 24 volts? Do I have this? You're just following that chain. And sure, we're all accustomed to that at this point. But with an error code, you can bypass a lot of that stuff, right? and go directly. It gives you a direction to go into. You can go directly to what that problem might be. For instance, like in the case of your air code, that you're talking
And
about.
it does a good job of telling you whether it's an indoor and outdoor air code.
Yeah.
So you know whether it's on an indoor unit or it's on an outdoor unit. So that was a 1-to-1 system. So it was really easy to go to that on the example that I had. But had it been 1 to multiple, the air code would have only been on the machine that they miswired the condensate pump. It wouldn't have been on every single head.
Right. So, I mean, even the push button process for the startup, it's just the SW3 button. You press and hold it once, and then you press to confirm the amount of indoor units you have, and then you press it one more time to start the debugging process. There's nothing to it. There's all kinds of numbers and letters and stuff like that it might show you, and that means a lot to us. We have an explanation for that on our website for the startup procedure. Gives it a step-by-step kind of thing. But for all intents and purposes, it is a 3-step process. It's about as complicated as going and turning on one of those really fancy thermostats, right? Without all the time delays and everything.
Well, James, you ain't wrong there, because some of the setup menus in them thermostats take you a good 15, 20 minutes to go through the setup menu on the thermostat.
Right, and as a company, we've become a lot more familiar with those setup processes for those thermostats. With the Flex or with the Multi-Pro with the 24-volt adapter. I'm like, man, they weren't lying when they said this thing was universal. It's got a lot of options. It's got a 30-step process to set up a thermostat. But let's take a look at some of the questions that we've got coming in now and get some of those answered. Okay. All right. What is the easiest way to access the required videos to become a GREE Select dealer? How does a contractor know which videos are considered certified training? Greg, I think you might be the most familiar with that process.
Well, actually, I'm not.
Okay. Well, so
I'm not gonna say I know something I don't know.
Right.
But I know we're also starting up GREE University, which is going to make getting the set up for GREE Select dealer really simple. Some online courses you can go through; they won't take you very long.
Right.
And some of them may seem really elementary, but I'll tell you guys, even going through it just kind of reminds you of things too. And we're building it up. It'll get more and more involved as GREE University grows that way. So.
Sure.
But
the process, from what I understand, is that the contractor, once they sign up to be a GREE Select dealer and they get the notification email that they are at that point a GREE Select dealer. And then after that, there are some videos that have to be, watched within a year of them signing up for it. But those are shown within the GREE Select dealer portal. So, where their login is, they go to their account and they'll see what videos are related to them. So no, we don't make people watch all the videos that we got. I mean, sure, it gets our YouTube count up, but we don't make them watch everything. But yeah, there are specific videos for that, and they're listed on that within that portal for the GREE Select dealer. But just to reiterate, as soon as they sign up, they are a GREE Select dealer, and they get the benefits that come along with that, including the 10-year parts warranty.
And I believe they get points too, right? As they
get points, yeah.
Systems.
Yeah. So they register the systems. The more systems that they register, the more points they get. They can cash in those points for things like gift cards, that kind of thing. So who knows? Maybe you sell enough, you can cash it in, buy like a boat, something like that. You can ask your salesman about that. That's a joke, everybody. So I got another question. R-32, does that include the mini splits and the flex units?
Absolutely, it does.
All right. So everything that we manufacture, correct? Everything that we support is going R-32.
That's correct.
That's it, right? Anything else? It's all R-32, right?
Yeah, everything that we will be stocking and importing will be R-32.
All right. Right. It's good when it's a clear direction, right? Okay, so all right. So now we're going to head on over and we're going to run a short clip on proper flaring. Pulled out from one of our recent training sessions and discuss it with you. It's a very important thing that everybody should know is proper flaring. Not you guys are experts, but the people that aren't watching this really need to take a look at this video. Okay, let's run that.
We're going to go ahead and do some flares.
All right, so first we want to remove the cap here. Can't tell you how many times I've talked to a contractor and somehow or another this ended up inside refrigerant line.
I can believe it.
And then because, you know, the factory could have damaged the pipe when they cut it, so we want to go ahead and make sure that we cut a piece off of there and just get a good smooth start to this before we deburr it and move on with the flare.
I've noticed that on these smaller lines, like a 1/4 inch line, if you use a smaller tubing cutter, it doesn't leave as big of a burr as using a full-size tubing cutter. So, and don't over torque it, you know, do it little by little, just like Daniel was just doing. So I think before I'd even do that, Daniel, just my own thought, I'd just go ahead and slide my flare nut on, that way I don't forget to put it on there.
You got a good point.
So if you noticed, I kind of tipped that down so we make sure we're not getting any shavings inside the copper. All right,
now we're ready to put our flare block. So you want to make sure that you've got the stop in place. So you want the copper up against this stop.
It's a brand new tool. It's never been used. You just want to make sure you got a good lubrication to it. So we just use a little bit of vacuum pump oil.
And I just put just a drop. All right, so there we have a very nice flare.
So it looks nice, but we definitely want to check it with a flare gauge and make sure we got a proper flare. So if the flare is proper, it'll go in and stop just like Daniel's showing there. It won't push all the way through.
But it will go through
the first hole.
The first hole.
There's like a little piece of little metal ring in there. You'll see it where it's supposed to stop. And obviously if it pushes all the way through, the flare is too small. If it won't go in the hole at all, the flare is too big. Right. So I think we're good with that first flare. Quick piece of tape over it.
And I would not use anything but the painter's tape, simply for the fact you don't want a bunch of glue stuck onto the face of your flare.
Yep. And now we'll go ahead and do our 5/8. This one we don't want to bend around as much because we don't want to work hard in the copper. Put the flare nut on.
Put this on first. All right.
I'll tip that down for you again.
All right, we get it in there and check that it's up against the stop on the flare block. So we're ready to go. All right, so we'll go ahead and check our flare to make sure we got the right size flare there. Actually, a little bit too big to fit into the flare gauge there. Why do you reckon that is, Greg?
Yeah, I think that something could be out of calibration here.
You want to do another one?
Yeah, let's try another one.
Okay. Look at that.
Perfect.
That is a perfect flare. So on the flare tool, it has some instructions here, and the last instruction says to adjust flare size, loosen or tighten the hex nut here. It's important to use the flare gauge so that we know that our tool is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Right. We're learning too, you know, as far as adjusting the tool. We took the time to make sure that tool was flaring to the right specification according to that gauge.
Making sure that you have the right size flare, not using stuff like red Loctite. Red Loctite does nothing for it. That's not how a flare works. If we make a proper flare, then we won't have to worry about this.
I'm just going to whack this off. That way I don't got to try to peel the tape off. My flare nut. Grab that tubing cutter. Let's see how I did.
Perfect flare.
All right, so our adjustment held.
Yep. Now the 1/4-inch pipe. Slide the flare nut on. We're good.
Good flare?
Yep.
All right.
Flare.
All right, that was definitely a helpful video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let's take some time to discuss that. How important is it, Greg, to make proper flares?
Well, I think that's one of the key things that we're trying to get across to everybody over there. You know, everybody's using their own choice of a flaring tool, which I really don't care what flaring tool you use, but it's making sure that that tool is in calibration. You're setting it into the flare block properly, that you're actually making the flare correctly, because there is human error can happen there. And then also, if you're using a powered flaring tool like the one I was using, that could be out of adjustment. So you can't just go with, hey, I set the machine, we're good, and I can flare from 1/4 to 5/8, never have to make any adjustments. All my flares are going to be perfect. And I think that's some of that mindset's lost there. That's why I showed in that video, you know, checking each one with the flare gauge. That's going to tell you for sure whether or not that flare was made right. And if it wasn't made right, your potential for a leak there is much, much higher, along with not using a torque wrench.
Yeah, I think having a proper flare is absolutely paramount. I think one of the number one failures and issues we have out in the field are improper flares leading to leaks.
Yep.
And it's bad enough for the 410A because it's going to lead to the failure of the system. But now that we're introducing these new A2L refrigerants that are, slightly flammable, it's going to be even more important to have a properly formed flare that is torqued properly to ensure that there are no leaks, indoors. You want to make sure that that refrigerant stays in the system and it doesn't come outside of the piping where it's not supposed to be.
Well, and Justin, that's a good point. And even think about the A2L thing. Yes, the importance of flares is going to even be more important. Doing a proper flare, but I think even also on top of that, because of the A2L refrigerant, because of you having that refrigerant leak sensor in there, you don't want that going off. You don't want that phone call from the homeowner or the end user. It's more important than ever that we make sure we're doing our flares correctly, torque them properly, and we do a nitrogen test. Charge that thing up to 400 pounds of nitrogen, do a leak check on it, make sure the flares are holding. And then the last one is pulling that vacuum. When you pull that vacuum, make sure it holds that vacuum. So now you've done 3 things to make sure that you don't have any leak at your flare. You've used a flare gauge to make sure you made it right. You used a torque wrench to torque it right. You also did a nitrogen test to make sure it wasn't leaking. And that's your 3 main ones. And then lastly, you make sure it holds vacuum so that you don't have any leaks.
Yep.
If we take those extra few minutes to do those things, it can save you the embarrassment of having to deal with that customer with that new system that their sensors going off because you didn't do the flare properly.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's bad enough to have a callback, dealing with an upset customer, but now with the new refrigerant leak detection sensors and all that stuff, there is a leak detected. There could be an audible alarm going off in that system. That's just going to make that callback even more awkward for you when you go back and see that customer, right?
And not to mention the fact that the homeowner is going to be like, I want you out here right now.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very important. I mean, it's part of the value that we bring as skilled tradesmen to the job. Doing things right is what we all get paid for. We give the directions on it, all that. I'll tell you, like my dad used to tell me, if you do it like I tell you to, then it's my fault. And so in this case, if we follow the instructions, that kind of thing, if you guys do exactly what we're trying to describe here, and then you can call us and go, hey, it broke. You know what I mean? So we're not having to talk about the work you did. We're talking about the work that some, on our side, right? Talking about, parts or something like that, that removes removes you out of the calculation in that case. So let's take a look at some of the questions that we've got in place. Got a couple questions. Looks like it's related to the components that an R-32 system like ours are going to be, the kind of components that are going to be in it. This is what about components of 410A? What about flame sensors? Not sure exactly, but I'm going to go ahead and take a liberty and go, hey, what do we have in our system that's going to be different than what 410A systems currently have?
Right. I think one of the questions regarding the components, he's referring to the 410A components, importation, things like that. I'm sure the customer is concerned about warranty support. So for the complete systems, I gave the hard cutoff dates for import earlier. However, the EPA is going to allow the importation of individual components. So if you just need compressors, coils, electronic expansion valves, so on and so forth, you can continue to import those components as of right now indefinitely. So if you do have a warranty issue, we're going to be importing those components to support those warranty cases out in the field. The other question says, what about flame sensors? Well, we've kind of engineered these units to ensure that mini splits, we don't need the flame sensors. We're not going to get to that point. I'm obviously joking. I think he's referring to the refrigerant leak detection sensors. All of our indoor units will be equipped with the refrigerant leak detection sensors. So if there's ever a 10% concentration or more of that A2L refrigerant that leaks into the unit, that refrigerant leak detection sensor will activate. It will shut down the refrigerant cycle of the system. It will bring the indoor fan on to the turbo speed, and that way it will help dilute the refrigerant away from the coil. It will flash an error code. I believe it's the EA error code. And then there will also be an audible buzzer, a little audible alarm to let you know that, hey, there's been a leak detected and the system's in that safety mode. So it's going to be a big cue for the customer to call the technician to get them out there to address any problems with that.
Just out of my own curiosity, do we have any indication on that alarm? Is that an alarm that can be silenced, or how does that? Do you know?
No. Reason for that, and it's just like any other fire safety alarm.
Right.
If you're in a multifamily situation and a fire breaks out, sprinklers go off, fire alarm goes off. You don't want someone just going, I'm really tired. I got to get up early in the morning. I'm going to silence this fire alarm.
Yeah, okay.
So it kind of goes against fire codes to be able to do that. So the answer is no.
I can't say that I wouldn't do that, but
well, I mean, you can, but you have to go turn the power off.
Okay, I gotcha. No, so effectively just shuts the system down, brings on the blower, dissipates your refrigerant, lowers the possibility of concentration. Yep, that kind of thing. It actually seems like that would be even less of a concern. I mean, just my own thought process here. Out of a wall mount, that's already kind of open, kind of to the air and all the rest of that, than it would be if it was an enclosed, space like a ducted unit would be. Seems like you might have a greater chance of some actual concentration there.
Yeah, what's really interesting about this, it's going to be in the international codes and everything else. I'm sure you'll see it in our installation manuals. There's actually a formula that the installing contractor will have to start paying attention to from now on to ensure that the room they're installing these units in have enough adequate free space for that refrigerant. If it does leak out, has enough adequate free space so it doesn't come into enough of a concentration to be possibly cause like an explosion or something like that. It can still burn. If any of you have seen the R-32 or R-454 burn, it's a very lazy flame. It's kind of hard to keep it going. It really just needs a constant source. It's unlike propane or some of these other hydrocarbons out there. But obviously in a high enough concentration, it can be a little more energetic. So all that's really doing is just ensuring there's enough free space for that refrigerant to dissipate into, so it doesn't become, extremely dangerous.
Right. Yeah. I believe we actually ran some of the numbers on that calculation, those formulas, and line sets inside a wall, for example. If it's inside an insulated wall, the amount of space that you have inside that wall at that point is very little. But when you're talking about things like that, you're also in reference to, you'd also need like a wire short or some kind of open flame inside the wall, that kind of thing. And you brought up propane, and I still think it's a point that needs to be driven home a little bit, is that, I don't have gas leak detection on gas appliances currently, right? And those are highly flammable. Propane and natural gas are highly flammable. And that's the reason why they're used, is because you could burn them, right? That's the whole reason that they use them. And, we've been doing those for well over 100 years now, and those are running inside walls and all the rest of that, and it's just something else that we just have to think about.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I guess the big thing to say here is let's not put the fear of new refrigerant in the customers. Don't give them that thought process,
right? Because we don't do the same thing with natural gas, and they got 5 pounds of R-32 versus an unlimited amount of natural gas, right? If you have a leak, or if I have a leak on my stove right now, my kitchen's going to be full.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great
point. The comparison's better to propane because it's heavier than air. It ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But either way,
the propane tank's a lot bigger than
right. But your natural gas appliances are hooked up to a supply system that supplies your city, right? It's going to keep going into the house,
right?
But again, there are no leak detection sensors on that, and it's much more dangerous. So I think you're right, Greg. We really shouldn't be putting the fear into people about this because there's so many safeties involved. And quite frankly, again, I encourage everybody to go on YouTube and watch the videos, the flame tests of these new A2L refrigerants. They're a very lazy, low energy flame. It really doesn't like to burn that much versus.
So you're saying like we could use it to cook a brisket or something if we wanted to?
No, there's no way. There's no way. That being said, I will say there's one little exception to the rule with the upcoming equipment. That's the 9K, 12K Levo and 115 volt. Those, because the charge size for those is lower than 1.8 kilograms, it's not required to have the leak detection sensor in it. The charge volume is so low, and those 115 volt heads are not compatible with multi-zone. All of our multi-zone is 230. So I will say on the 115 volt, we won't have the sensors in those because it's just by UL, it's not required. But everything else will have the sensor.
So that falls under the same as like some of the appliances that already use like an A2L refrigerant. Then
Exactly.
Got low amount. I got you.
Yep.
I got you. Yeah, I got a refrigerator that's got a big yellow sticker on the back of it. I'm like, well, that's what is that, 6 ounces? Like what am I worried about? All right, so we do have a lot more questions. So I'm going to leave one of these technical ones for a little bit later. But where can I get a flare gauge? I think that's a good question.
It was a good question. So I just did a quick Google search. So because I didn't know all the brand names myself, but Navac has them, Yellow Jacket has them, JB Industries has them, CPS has them. Quick little Google search. You can probably get it on Amazon and have it to your house faster. You can drive to the parts house,
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Even with a perfect flare, how do you guys feel about insurance gaskets? It's got quotation marks on it, such as, in this case, it says such as Rector Steel's flare type.
Well, so I kind of have talked about that in many training classes and stuff like that. I'm not going to say you can't use them, nor is GREE going to say you can't use them. But I'm a firm believer that if you're doing the flares correctly, you shouldn't need them.
Right.
And if you want to put them on there, put them on there.
Right. And that would be basically like what we're talking about. I mean, like in that case, there's no risk of it, affecting the system, that kind of thing. Now, I mean, we have spoke about additives and stuff like that in the past. If they have an opportunity to distribute themselves inside the air conditioning system, we wouldn't support that, right? Just like, sealants and like thread sealants and stuff like that aren't really.
That's the one that's always amazed me. You're putting thread sealant on a flare when it has absolutely nothing to do with what keeps it from leaking.
Right.
The flare is what keeps it from leaking.
Yep.
Now, if you want to put just a touch of Loctite on the threads so the flare can't loosen, I've never had one loosen, but lock the threads, but not on the flare itself. You should have nothing on that flare,
right,
as far as the sealant goes.
Right, and that's part of the issue that we have, in the job that we have, supporting this type of product, is that, if in a lab condition, kind of thing, you're like, okay, I can easily apply this, and I can make sure it's not going to go inside the system, that kind of thing. I don't care what the bottle says. Like as far as it going inside the system and all the rest of that stuff. But if I do the same thing, but I place myself in an attic or on a tall ladder or, something like that, then all of a sudden, how can I effectively, make sure that it's not going to go in the system?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of, no manufacturer is going to have long testing, long term testing data, especially on some stuff that they don't sell, especially on some stuff that they don't manufacture themselves. If they were true believers in it, that they would include it with the unit, that kind of thing, right? Go ahead.
I just recommend if you're going to add anything at all, just put a touch of refrigeration oil to the pipe, to help keep things from deforming, stuff like that when you're making the flare. But just follow the proper flaring technique, as Greg and Daniel showed in the video. Use the proper tools, torque it down properly. Just follow the system. You don't need any of these marketing bells and whistles out there. Just follow the proper technique. That's really all you need.
Right. Okay. In relation to A2L, I'm sure you're happy to hear that, Justin. Is there going to be a shutdown feature if the unit senses leak with R-32? We already answered that. Yes, there is. But it says, I've heard in other A2L classes that some will pump themselves down.
So I haven't heard anything about systems pumping themselves down. I think for the most part, for example, if a leak is detected in the indoor system, you want to completely shut the refrigeration cycle off. That way you're not flowing any more refrigerant through that indoor unit and potentially letting even more out or introducing more oxygen in the system, things like that. So basically all it's going to do with our units, the compressor is going to shut down and the indoor fan is going to come on to the turbo speed. That's what we're doing. We're not going to have any kind of weird pump down features or anything like that. Now in larger systems, I forgot what the threshold is, but with large charge amounts, code is going to require additional shut off valves and things like that. But that's just to kind of help trap the charge in the system where it belongs, things like that. It's not running the refrigeration cycle. So I think
yeah, I believe it's all the same thing. It's just additional isolation valves for things like accumulators or something that's going to hold a certain amount of refrigerant, or if you can isolate just at the outdoor unit, for example. Definitely. I think that's probably where they're going to go with a lot of like air cooled chillers, things that are going to have a lot larger charge amounts. One question we got is, or it's a statement: when I run out of propane, I can use R-32 for cooking. I don't recommend doing that, flavor profile wise and all that. And I think the EPA would be against that as well. Just taking a wild guess here. I'm not a government representative, but I don't think they would appreciate that.
I don't think that propane burner is going to burn very well either.
Yeah, I don't know what you do as far as an orifice goes.
That's going to be a very expensive meal by the end of the day because you're going to need to burn a lot of it to get the same energy as propane.
Yeah. See, we answer the tough questions here at Talking Comfort Live. What is accept fluorine mode? Customer said there is an FO code on the indoor units, same system as first question. Okay, I'll go back on that. Okay, so there are two codes that look like FO. I'll let Greg answer some more on that, but there's F and a large O, so it takes up the whole
Oh.
7-segment display. And then there's an FO that's a little half of that 7-segment display.
Right.
F big O usually means it's low on refrigerant, but in this case, it's a multi-zone. So F big O would mean what, Greg?
It could also be a failed thermistor on the indoor unit, on the indoor coil.
Right, and the chances of having a low charge just appear on one indoor unit is
Pretty
impossible.
slim.
So
Yeah.
we are looking at an indoor pipe sensor, right? Is that what we're looking at on that job?
I think it's the pipe. It might be the ambient, but I tell guys, if you're going to a wall mount, just test them both, because when you order the part, you're getting both.
A good point. Yeah.
And I can't remember for sure if it's ambient or coil, but it's all in the indoor unit.
Just take it out there with you.
That's a good idea too, because the thermistors aren't that expensive.
Trying to save time there, you know. And it looks like okay, I got two more here. And again, the question mark is on the right-hand side. So if you want to ask questions, please feel free to do so. Sorry if this has already been asked. Will this talk be recorded and available to those who signed up? Yes. All of our Talking Comfort Live segments are then published on YouTube. If I'm not mistaken, you guys know it's all on YouTube, right? And then it will also be on our website under the instructional videos. All of the Talking Comfort Talking Comfort Live episodes are available there. So if you want to go back and watch anything that you missed or hear some of the jokes that we made, you can go ahead and do that. All right. The next question we have is we got a unit in the garage, and they want to set the temperature higher than 86 degrees, which is the highest temperature that we have available on our remote. Is there any option for us to get it to 88 degrees, which is what is being asked here?
The only option would be a 24-volt adapter.
Okay.
And using a standard thermostat that allow you to set the temperature above what grease controls are set for max. Max set point is 86.
I gotcha. So that's probably in one of those cases where we're just trying to knock some of the, just knock the heat off a little bit, so it's not just killer, like Arizona, something like that.
And to be honest with you, I don't really recommend that, because what you're doing is you're always putting a high load on the outdoor unit and the compressor. You'd be better off to bring that down, even though it costs you a little more energy, maybe setting it down to like 82. That way you're not putting such a high load on that machine all the time, because it means every time it comes on, it is under a high heat load that evaporator seeing, that the coil temperature, that your coil seeing, that it knows the ambient temperature. So you're putting a high load on the evaporator, which means you're putting a high load on the compressor.
Right. So you're going to get
which means you're going to get warmer refrigerant gas back to the compressor, which also has to cool the compressor. So I've never recommended that, even on a unitary system, that we keep temperature set points that high.
Right. No, I think it's a great point. Now, there's also an energy saving mode. There's a button combination which can be found on our, how to use the GREE remote video, which is a pretty popular one. But it describes how to put it in energy saving mode. I can tell you from my own testing, it's not a comfortable mode. That's not what it's there for. And that may be, something that gives you a little bit more energy saving and runs at a lower speed, that kind of thing.
James, do you remember what the sub point was on that? I thought it was 78. I could be wrong.
Yeah, so
I think you can adjust it too.
Yeah, well, it seems to be, at least the last time I ran it, it seems to be based on ambient temperature. So it really just kind of knocks the heat off a little bit.
Okay.
Not much. I mean, I would normally use that if you're going to use it at all in an unoccupied situation. A garage would technically be an unoccupied situation, so you can kind of use it like that. So we've got one more question. All right. can you go over the maximum capacities we can achieve through twinning with the new GMV6 R-32 condensing units? How many units can be twinned, what tonnages, etc.? All right, so the R-32 versions of our GMV6 VRF outdoor systems are under development. They continue to be under development at this time. We are looking at the same tonnages that are currently being offered as GMV5. But if you've got anything to add to that, Justin, please do so.
Yeah, like you said, we're still working on the VRF R32 product, but as of right now, the plan is just to continue forward with pretty much the same chassis sizes and tonnages that we currently offer in the 410A.
Right. We're going to see that in the GMV6 410A and the same thing as R32. So
Yep.
We should be able to take care of all the applications that you're accustomed to taking care of currently. All right. It doesn't appear that we have any more questions. Looks like we answered everything there. So this was a perfect podcast. There's no more questions for anybody at all. All right. Well, I appreciate it, guys. Appreciate your guys' time. Thank you very much. That does it for Talking Comfort Live for this month. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, at GREE, we're by your side. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching Talking Comfort Live with GREE HVAC. Make sure to keep a lookout for an invite to our next show, or subscribe to our GREE Comfort YouTube channel to make sure you get notified anytime we release new content.